President Proctor, go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the San Mateo-Foster City School District Board of Trustees meeting. Today is May 12th, 2022, and I'm calling the meeting to order at 5:00 p.m. We are going to recess to closed session where we'll discuss item 2.1, conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8, property Knowles School, 525 42nd Avenue, San Mateo, California, price and terms of use of property. And item 2.2, Government Code Section 54957, public employee evaluation, discipline, dismissal, release, superintendent evaluation. And item 2.3, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to section 54956.9B, 2 cases. And we will reconvene at about 6:30. So I'll see you then. Thank you.
President Proctor, go ahead.
Good evening. We are reconvening to our regular meeting with nothing to report out of closed session. Let's go into item 3.2, which is the flag salute. Please stand and join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and we will do our roll call. Trustee Warren?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins? Here. Trustee Corzo?
Present.
Trustee Chin?
Here.
And I am also here. Trustee Corzo, would you mind doing the translation announcement, please?
Sure. Bienvenidos. Si ocupan traducción, por favor, levanten la mano o también pueden hacer clic en su pantalla en el mundo que ven en su pantalla y ahí pueden cambiar el idioma. Gracias.
Thank you. Item 3.4 is approval of tonight's agenda, May 12th, 2022.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Chin, for the motion and Trustee Corzo for the second. All in favor, please unmute and say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, that is 5 ayes. Huh? Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, we need to do roll call vote. Sorry. Let's try that again. Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Corso.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Okay. Item 3.5, approval of minutes from the April 28th, 2022 meeting.
Motion to approve.
I'll second. Thank you, Trustee Chin, for the motion, and I have seconded. Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Moving on to item 4.1, public statements related to non-agenda topics. The San Mateo-Foster City School Board cannot act upon any matter that has not been included and publicly posted on the agenda, except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. The board may refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and/or action where appropriate. Please limit your statements to 3 minutes. And we do not have anybody in the actual audience. So Peter, can we check with the Zoom audience, please?
Absolutely. Those who may be joining us for the first time via Zoom, if you would like to make public comment on something that is not going to be discussed later on in the agenda this evening, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom and I will call you one at a time. You'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Okay. First, we'll have Carson, then after Carson, we'll have Brena. Carson, go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
We can, go ahead.
Hi, nice to see you again. It's Jenna Carson. And it's been quite a while as I have no more San Mateo Foster City kiddos. There's so much to talk about, and I'm not going to start with the Abbott Gym. Actually, my comment is about on your consent agenda tonight, the hiring of Principal Cindy Chin, and what an amazing choice you have just made. So I've actually known Cindy for almost 20 years in her roles down in Ravenswood. Sorry if the cat's out of the bag now, anyone that didn't actually read the HR bulletin. But I'm just here to say congratulations to Cindy and good job on you guys, because she is going to do an amazing, amazing stuff for that school. And yeah, thanks so much. I'm glad it's working out. We will be in touch, I'm sure. Adios.
Thank you, Jenna. Next, we have Reina. Then after Reina will be the person identified by the letter C. Reina, go ahead.
Hi, yeah, this is Rena Korb, and I have 2 8th graders at Abbott. And I was calling regarding the LCAP survey that went out a few weeks ago. And I, being an active parent, I tried to fill out the survey, but I found I really couldn't, because we parents have had so little connection to school this year, to staff, to understanding what student outcomes we're hoping to be, that we were trying to get to, that I was unable to answer. So I thought that might be, an interesting tidbit to share in of itself. And I called the district a week and a half ago, explained what I was calling about, the LCAP survey. So I wasn't calling to complain, but I just wanted to give this input that, I just have no idea what was really going on at school this year. We did not have parent conferences, and I don't even know who my kids' teachers are. But yeah, I left a message. I spoke with a staff member, and that person said he was passing a message along to the staff member at the district who, could best find out more about what I was calling about. And I just realized tonight that person never called me back. So I just feel like completely, my kids are 8th grade. I'm out of the district soon, but I do not feel like I have been part of it for quite some time. And I think that is something that, the district, the board should know about. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rena. Okay, next we have the person identified by the letter C. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Sure. Hi, my name is Carmen. My kid is in 6th grade at Borrell. We had a shelter in place that was happening this morning. In fact, my kid had a doctor's appointment, and so he was late. I just want to make a comment. He was actually ushered into the office to stay there, even though the shelter in place was in the middle of it. It was I believe 9 o'clock when he showed up. So there was still a whole hour before it was safe for him to go to class. If you guys can go over what the procedure is for kids who come to school late during a shelter in place. Nobody told my husband when he showed up that was happening. If we had known, we would have maybe have chose to just take him home and not have him stay at school. So if that was something that we can express on a newsletter or something like that, and just letting parents know what that procedure can be, because we don't know what's going on, right? So thanks. That's it.
Thank you, Carmen. Okay, President Proctor, we have no other hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Item 4.2 is public statements related to agenda items. Persons will be called on at the appropriate time. So we will go right into item 4.3, which is foundations and committee reports. Anyone have anything to share?
If someone else wants to go first, I can give a quick update afterwards. Well, I will only share that there was a sanctuary task force meeting today that I was not able to attend. And so that is my update.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, then we will go on to item 4.4, SMETA CSEA SMEA updates.
Good evening, everyone. You can hear me, right? Yay! Okay, so if I look a little cross-eyed, it's because I'm reading my actual monitor, so my apologies. I wanted to start off by thanking Dennis Hills and Ann Smith for the fabulous celebration prior to the start of our AASOS meeting yesterday. It's nice to feel appreciated, and I think the district is doing a wonderful job with that this year. I know this is on your agenda for a little later, but next week is Classified Employee Appreciation Week. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank our classified staff for everything they do. I know you are all well aware of the positions that fall under the classified umbrella, but for those in attendance that may not know, we are everywhere, and I really mean everywhere. So thank you to our crossing guards, classroom paras, annex staff, everyone over at the preschool, maintenance and operations, including our grounds workers, utility workers, our plumber, HVAC, and key guys, child nutrition services, including all of our food service workers and delivery drivers, school site office support, library staff, everyone over at the district office, ranging from our receptionist to the administrative assistants, program specialists, most of the nursing department, Naira and Mark in the print shop, student services, HR, technology, the business services department, including payroll and accounts payable, Joe in the IMC, and every other position that I forgot to mention, because even though I mentioned all of those positions, I guarantee that I still forgot someone. We really are the glue that holds everything together, and I thank you all for everything that you do daily to provide our students with a safe environment to thrive in. Since I'm giving praise to our wonderful employees, I would also like to take this opportunity to let you know who the first recipient of the CSEA Employee of the Month Award is and why they are receiving it. I'm sure you are aware that there was a fire at Bowditch a couple weeks ago. 5 minutes before the release time, the fire was reported by a student to a teacher who looked out of her classroom and saw the smoke coming out of the restroom. But thankfully, she also saw Ravendra across the courtyard. The teacher then sent the student running towards him for help. Ravendra sprinted across the courtroom, grabbed an extinguisher, entered the bathroom, which was described to me as having black smoke billowing out of it, and then proceeded to start extinguishing the fire. The teacher notified the office, who then manually pulled the alarm to notify students and staff to evacuate. I'm not sure why the alarm didn't go off, but I know it's being looked into, but yeah. The students and staff made it safely out to the blacktop, and the students were released shortly after their regular release time. Ravendra was treated for smoke inhalation at the scene by firefighters, and then an ambulance to the hospital for further evaluation. He is fine. He is our hero. So thank you and congratulations to my colleague, my friend, and my work dad, our school ops team lead, Ravendra Singh, for being the first recipient of the CSEA Employee of the Month Award. And not that I want to end this on a sad note, but Mr. Lee, who is a PE teacher over at Audubon, isn't doing well. He is very much loved by a lot of our students and the staff over at his site. He has requested that 1,000 origami paper cranes be made for him. In order to get this done as soon as possible, the people stringing them together need them by Saturday. I know this doesn't leave a lot of notice, but if anyone is skilled in making these, please do so and drop them off at either the Audubon or Bowditch office tomorrow. That's all I have. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm happy to go next. Apologize. I am technically in a different meeting right now, but I wanted to step out. So hopefully the background noise here isn't too bad, but I just want to first say I also saw a familiar name on our consent agenda, and while Abbott is really sad to see Dr. Rubicaba leave Abbott, we are excited that he'll continue the work he started at Abbott for everyone in the district. So I want to wish him a sincere congratulations, and also maybe apologize a little bit for if I seemed sad and unsupportive when I first heard the news. I want to also acknowledge everyone who was so great to our teachers last year for Teacher Appreciation Week. I think people felt really loved, and we are very much looking forward to the coffee cart we've been promised. I think it's just the gasoline we're going to need to get through the rest of this school year. We are in the midst of getting ready for CASP testing. Many of our sites started our assessments this week. Some are starting next week, and we are looking forward to, maybe that's not the right phrase. We are determined to do our very best. I'm not sure we're looking forward to CASP testing, but we are determined to do our very best in this kind of unusual testing year. And also, since I am in another meeting, I won't be able to speak on this later, but I am very excited to see that TCI is up for a curriculum adoption. As a fifth grade teacher, I had the opportunity to use this curriculum, and I think it's very culturally sensitive. I think it's accessible to students. I think it's one of the better curriculum I've worked with, so I'm very excited to see that on the agenda and wanted to weigh in my support for that. And then finally, I also want to say that I think the SMETA members who just found out about Mr. Lee are also kind of reeling. I'm with a colleague of his tonight, and I can share that we know he was beloved. We are all incredibly sad, and I think you can count on, Alicia, I think you can count on SMETA to provide some of those paper cranes. So we are all keeping him in his family in our thoughts and prayers. So thank you.
Superintendent Ochoa, do we have anyone from SMEA? Okay, no. Okay, thank you, Julie and Alicia, for those updates. We will move on to item 4.5, announcements.
I'll just make a really quick announcement that I have my camera off and will have it off for the meeting. I'm pretty under the weather, but wanted to be sure that I was here.
I would like to make an announcement that this week is Nurses Week, and we have 4 nurses that serve students in our district. So I just wanted to make a shout out and give them a shout out to Catherine Lee, RN, who is a certificated school nurse who has been in this district since 8/2019. Marilyn Ponce de Leon, RN, who's a credentialed school nurse who's been in San Mateo-Foster City School District also since 8/2019. Christina Hirsch, licensed vocational nurse, is a classified employee in this district since 2017. And introducing our newest school nurse. I'm so excited to see more nurses come and serve our students who have, coming out of the pandemic, a lot of need. Nicole Monazon, RN, who started exactly 1 month ago, April 12th, 2022. And I just wanted to read the definition. It's really quick, I promise, and I'll read fast. But the definition of school nursing is a specialized practice of nursing, protects and promotes student health, facilitates optimal development, and advances academic success. School nurses, grounded in ethical and evidence-based practice, are the leaders who bridge healthcare and education, provide care coordination, advocate for quality student-centered care, and collaborate to design systems that allow individuals and communities to develop their full potential. So on that note, I just would like to wish our 4 school nurses a happy Nurses Week.
I will just share, I know a few of us went to the Annie musical this week, or last week, I should say, last weekend-ish, on different nights. So it was great. It was Abbott Middle School, and just wanted to give a shout out to Grace for inviting us, and it was a wonderful performance. So thank you very much. And I don't have any other announcements. Anyone else?
I will just announce that next weekend I'll be going to Delegate Assembly in Sacramento. So I'll be coming back with a report out from that. And I just want to also remind folks that there is the voter registration deadline in our county is on the 23rd.
Thank you for all. Oh, go ahead.
So I just thought of one big announcement, congratulating our sister school district to the north, the Jefferson School District. They are having the grand opening for their workforce housing tomorrow. And so it's a big deal. The first educator housing in this area since I think College of San Mateo back in the day. I know that there are a number of districts that are still looking at it as options to help with the housing insecurity that our area has. So congratulations to them. And that's it.
I'll just add to that there is like an official, it is also an official SMCSBA meeting. So if board members want to attend, it'll be there's going to be like a reception and a mixer as well. So it's a good way to go and visualize what that can actually look like. So thank you for reminding me about that.
Great, thank you. We will go on to item 4.6, which is the superintendent report. Superintendent Ochoa.
Thank you, President Proctor. So many thank yous. As our CSEA president pointed out, Ravendra, our wonderful school custodian there at Foster City is going to be, at Bowditch Middle School, is actually going to receive a surprise tomorrow that we're very excited about, and thanking him and honoring his contributions. And so I wanted to begin there. I want to also call out the work of our classified staff members. This is the time of year where we recognize our teachers, we recognize our school nurses, we recognize our school principals, and then Classified School Employees Week, and the wonderful, wonderful contributions that our staff make. And being in and around our campuses, these folks are 100% committed to our school district. They are making sure that children are fed. They are making sure that children are safe. For many of our students, they are the person they trust the most on campus. They are the person they go to when they need support. So I really want to extend that recognition and that acknowledgement for what these folks do in our school district, and that's on a daily basis. They make a difference. And also a huge thank you to the team of folks who work in our CSEA chapter, Alicia Aragon and John and everybody else that works to support and connect with their members, and the wonderful work that they do. And that's my report for this evening.
Thank you very much. We are now going to go to item 5, proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on, sorry, spam risk calling me, sorry. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed and discussed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Moving any recommended consent items is appropriate at this time. Are there any members of the board that would like to remove any items?
I'd like to request item 5.1.3 be pulled and voted on separately, please.
You said 5.1.3? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Peter, can we check with the people on Zoom to see if there's anything that they would like to pull?
Absolutely. If there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on one of the agenda items this evening, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. I'll call upon you and ask you to give me the specific agenda item you'd like to make public comment on. Okay. Marcella, what item would you like to make public comment on?
5.3.2.
Okay, thank you, Marcella. Okay, other than that one, President Proctor, we have no other hands.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have two requests to remove 5.1.3 and 5.3.2.
Motion to approve the consent agenda minus those two items.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Chin for the motion and Trustee Watkins for the second. Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So we will now go to item 5.1.3.
Can I just say one thing? I just
Mhm.
want to thank Second Harvest of Silicon Valley for funding one of our kettles. We do feed a lot of hungry kids in our district, so thank you to them for helping us do that.
Thank you. So we will now go to item 5.1.3. Is there a report or anything we need for this?
President Proctor, item 5.1.3 is a special education settlement agreement resolving claims fully and finally regarding educational services through the end of the 2022-2023 school year. And this agreement does not constitute, nor should it be construed as an admission of liability by the district or by parents for any purpose, resulting from an informal settlement negotiation outside of and prior to any litigation proceedings. And administration recommends that the board approve the settlement agreement in the amount not to exceed $81,488.10.
Okay, thank you. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? Peter, can we check with the audience to see if there are any?
Absolutely. If there's any audience members that would like to make public comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, are there any board comments on this item? Okay, seeing none, we will go to. Oh, do you have a comment? Oh, sorry. We will go to a vote. Trustee Warren.
I abstain.
Oh, sorry.
I'll make the motion to approve item 5.1.3.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Chin for the motion and Trustee Corzo for the second. Now we will vote. Trustee Warren.
I abstain.
Okay, Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
And I vote yes. So that's 4 yeses and 1 abstention for this item. And the next item is 5.3.2. Do we have a report on this one?
Item 5.3.2 is the district's resignation, release, and retirements for the board meeting May 12, 2022. Listed in the section at the top of the item is a list of employees being released or resigned from their positions, in some cases retiring as well. And down below are classified employees with the same scenario. And no other comments on this.
I just wanted to add Superintendent Choa.
Thank you. Are there any
Thank you, Sue.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to add that some of the resignations are from people that have taken other positions in the district. So they are not actually leaving the district.
Thank you, Sue, for that clarification. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, Peter, can we go to public comment on this one?
Yes, if there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, Marcella, go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to make 2 points or 2 comments. The as far as I'm aware, the district doesn't have currently a robust tracking process or exit process for when our teachers or administrators do leave the district. So I recognize that some of them are, you know, our beloved teachers, our beloved administrators leave for a variety of reasons, but I would like us to have a systemic way of tracking what, you know, some external process that doesn't necessarily involve direct supervisors that can help identify if there are patterns. And I'm not speaking about these current resignations, I'm speaking in general, but about the specific changes. I wanted to highlight that I'm noticing that at Abbott, we are losing our principal, we are losing our assistant principal, and we are losing a key counselor that has really impacted our students. And we are really close to the end of the year, which makes it a huge challenge to find that kind of the caliber of administration. I'm hoping that there will be discussions, because obviously, as mentioned, this is the first that some of us are hearing about some of these changes. So I'm really hoping there'll be some discussion with families, that students will potentially be involved in the process as we look to hire a whole new leadership team at a school that just barely got a brand new leadership team. So those 2 pieces, I think, might be helpful as we move forward in thinking about teachers and staff and administrators as they move into the district or move out of the district. I'd really like us to keep an eye on how they're feeling and how they're making decisions about where to go. And then just a shout out for Abbott, because that's a lot of loss at the end of a really challenging year for students and teachers and administrators. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcella. Okay, President Proctor, there are no other hands for public comment.
Thank you. Are there any board comments on this item?
President Proctor, if I could, Superintendent Ochoa, I believe just based off of the public comments, it's my understanding that we offer exit interviews to everyone who leaves, and whether or not people actually take them is their choice. I know people leave for a variety of reasons, and I know that it does look terribly bad in terms of the timing that most of the leadership of Abbott is leaving. But I know that there is a promotion, and then there's some departures for various reasons. So one, I guess, is more of a, sorry, 2 questions. We do offer the exit interviews, if you can confirm that. And then second, from my understanding, everyone who's here, it's effective at the end of the school year. So it's not like everyone's leaving before school is out. Is that correct?
That's correct. The separations are effective at the end of the school year. And I think just my understanding of the public comment was perhaps to think about how we conduct the exit interviews and maybe finding a way to have exit interviews where the person on the other end of the desk is not the person's supervisor or somebody in a supervisory role, but maybe somebody more in a more collaborative type of role. So I think there's something to that. I think that's something we can definitely look at. And we do reach out to employees as they're leaving the district and have those interviews or those conversations. It's also, I want to put in a plug for our strategic plan. It's also built into our strategic plan moving forward.
Thank you. And I'm happy to make a motion if there are no other. Yeah, I see motion to approve. Sorry, go ahead. Second.
You're
I'll
so
withdraw my
fast.
motion for the. I'll withdraw my motion for right now.
Yeah, I will just say that I have my concerns as well about the turnover at Abbott. It's definitely not ideal. And I'm also excited for the folks in our district who are moving on to other roles. But I will say that I think it definitely is a good idea that we have further conversations about some of the turnover at many, like Abbott is not the only school, right? There are other schools that have also had a lot of turnover. And I muted myself on accident. I think that warrants a conversation explicitly for those schools that are facing that specific struggle.
So I'll make a motion now to approve this item.
I will second it. So thank you, Trustee Chin, for the motion, and I have seconded this one. So let's go to roll call vote. Trustee Warren?
Yes.
Trustee Watkins?
Yes.
Trustee Corzo?
Yes.
Trustee Chin?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. So this one passes. And before we move on to the next item, we did in the consent agenda, we did approve some new teachers and principals and district office leaders. So I wanted to turn it over to Superintendent Ochoa and see if they'd like, any of them would like to be acknowledged.
Absolutely. I'll turn it over to Sue Weiser. I see that we're already joined by our new principal of Sunnybrae. Hi, Cynthia. Nice to see you. We'll give you a chance in a minute here to say hello to the folks in our district. And Sue, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. We are pleased to welcome our new principal to Sunnybrae Elementary School, Cynthia Chin. Cynthia has been in the Ravenswood School District for many years, serving as a principal, as an assistant principal, and as a teacher. And so we'd like to welcome her to the San Mateo-Foster School District. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you. I'm really excited to join the San Mateo Foster City team and to get started.
Thank you, Cynthia. Next, we'd like to welcome Ryan Haven. Dr. Ryan Haven is currently the principal at Edenvale Elementary School in the Oak Grove School District in San Jose. He's been a principal for many years in San Bruno as well as Los Altos. So welcome, Dr. Haven.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to join the San Mateo Foster City family.
And then next we have Dr. Christian Rubalcaba. We know Dr. Rubalcaba really well. He's been the principal at Abbott Middle School and also at Laurel Elementary. And now he is taking on a new position as the Director of School Leadership at the district office.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to transition into this new role and continue to advocate for our students, not only at Abbott, but across our district, in support of our strategic plan goals and work. We're going to go full steam ahead with that kind of work. And I'm excited for the collaboration and this next step in supporting all students and ensuring that we have a unified community where we're here for kids 100% of the time. I'm actually not at home or at school. I'm actually here with 2 colleagues from our district. We're here to view the viewing of a film, The Right to Read, which is a literacy kind of educational documentary that's going to kind of inform us. I'm here with my colleague, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Pam Bartfield, and incoming Director of Equity, current outgoing Principal of Sunnybray, Ms. Nancy Bowie. And so we're here already diving into the work and getting gear up for the collaboration ahead. So I'm very excited for this opportunity, and thanks everyone for your attention this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Rubikava. And I neglected to mention, and I apologize, Dr. Haven. Ryan Haven will be our new principal on special assignment for multi-tiered systems of support. So welcome.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Sue. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you and welcome to our district, those of you that are new, and I'm excited for everyone in their new positions and new roles. Anyone have anything else? Okay, thank you guys. We'll see you soon. We will move on to item 6.1, approval of 2022-2023 board meeting calendar.
Thank you. Thank you, President Proctor and Board of Trustees. Tonight's presentation is a review of meeting dates, as well as board meeting structure and board meeting process heading into the 22-23 year, and the recommendations moving forward regarding how our district will initiate these meetings and conduct these meetings. So first and foremost, I think you're going to notice that there is a streamlining of the meeting dates. The regular board meetings, I want to engage in a conversation with the board around this topic of having one monthly meeting beginning in August and taking it through the school year, with the exception of June having 2 regular meetings. And the reason for that is the just the workload that happens at the end of the year regarding closing our budget and adopting our LCAP. June is a month where you really do need 2 regular school board meetings. Aside from that, one thing that is included in this recommendation and the document before you today is the acknowledgement of having a continuation of community participation using online means to be able to call in to comment on items of concern, items on non-agenda items. I think the general public has seen in our region, there are school districts that are beginning to limit that type of online participation. I believe that to really reduce parent engagement, and for that reason, I recommend that as a board, we and superintendent governance team, that we remain committed for the next year in board meetings to allow the public to do what you all have seen they just did, which is comment on the items that are important to them without having to leave their home to physically come to our school board meetings. And that is built into the plan that's being presented to the board this evening. I'd like to make a recommendation and a change to the manner in which the meetings take place and the structure of the meetings, and discuss the reasons why doing so is to the benefit of the work of the district. And the first is to open school board meetings with open session and not with closed session. And that's a change for this district. Part of the reason to do that is twofold. Although we do have many participants who log in via Zoom and via Google and watch our meetings even after they take place, I think there still is an opportunity for us to bring back some of our students and staff who had traditionally been at some of our meetings. Holding meetings at 5 p.m. And beginning with open session will allow us to involve our students and recognize our students and staff in person, those that are able to attend. In addition to that, be able to have the type of items that take place at the beginning of our meetings. It usually takes us, well, we started tonight at 6:35, I believe it was, and it's 7:22 tonight. So that's about 45 minutes, give or take a few. And we're just now beginning discussion and information items. So if you think about that kind of a typical timeline, if we began our meetings at 5 p.m., by 5:45, we'll be into the meat of the school board meeting. Doing so will give us ample time to discuss the issues that the board is expected to talk about, receive reports on, consider, and potentially vote on. And to do so at a time where public participation can be very high. One of the disadvantages of beginning school board meetings and going into closed session is that agendized items get pushed down the line. And so if we come out of closed session at 6:30, 6:35, and we start open session at 6:35, there have been nights, even with during my tenure as superintendent, where a meeting went past midnight. And on that particular night, we actually moved a business department item from that meeting to another meeting because we just felt like it wasn't fair to, basically discuss the item after midnight. And that part of the reason that happens is because there is that compressed timeline from 6:30 up until midnight. So the idea of starting our meetings earlier is to give this board time to deliberate with the public and to go through the reasoning and hear the reports, with the hope that on a typical regular school board meeting night, we're finishing somewhere around 10 o'clock, 9:30, 10 o'clock. And from there, we would recess into closed session at the end of open session. Many times the school board will recess into closed session and not have a report out. They'll basically return to open session and say no actions were taken during closed session. And in this scenario, we would do the same thing. We would actually come back out to the dais, log back in. So families that were, or community members that were participating online would basically just watch it. They could keep it on and it would say like school board in closed session. And when we would return, it would announce the board has returned. And if we took action, then we would report out the action the same way we do now, only it would be at 11:30 or 11:15, depending on the time of evening that took place. So the idea is to ensure for the next year this continued online support with this recommendation that we begin the meetings in open session and then convene after we've gone through information, discussion, action, any public hearings at the end of those meetings. In addition to that, my recommendation is that the board adopt a schedule of board study sessions that convene at 4 o'clock. If you plot these on a calendar, they look suspiciously like the current agenda that the board has. In other words, they're the same day of the week. They happen a little bit earlier, so they start at 4 o'clock. And what this does is it gives the board the opportunity to sit and really dig into the details of items that we already know are issues of concern for us as a board and superintendent governance team. And those items are culturally responsive practices, early literacy. Something we've talked about quite a bit over the last 3 months during the strategic plan process is really wanting us as a district to talk about math and talk about science and talk about the education our kids are receiving. And this would allow us to devote 2 hours at each one of those meetings solely to those topics, similar to the meeting we held regarding North Central San Mateo or early literacy, where we're able to really go deep into the topic. And those would be agendized. I will say, after I published this, I looked at it and said, oh, I want to move one up or down. So I do want to, advise the board that I would want to have the opportunity to just adjust maybe once more before we finalize some of these topics. I think some lend themselves to a little bit of an earlier discussion. One that comes to mind right away is both math and science. So I might move those up just a little bit in the agenda, try to get them maybe closer to September or October. And again, those would be Zoom participation as well as in-person participation along basically the current calendar that you already have, with the exception of their single focus board items. President Proctor, any questions, comments, follow-ups?
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions on this item?
I'll try and keep this to questions rather than comments. Superintendent Ochoa, there's a lot there. Normally when we approve, oh, sorry, that's a comment. Just for clarification, big high level stuff here. We're making a statement that for the next year, we will have both virtual and in-person options for all of our meetings.
That's correct.
Because I know, okay.
That's correct.
Because I know some districts are going only back to in-person. So, but we are making the statement that we are continuing both options for everybody.
That's correct. And I think, some districts are doing that, but also some municipalities, also some cities, some county, so I think during the pandemic, public participation really exploded throughout all avenues of governance. So, your water district had more participation, your county offices of education. So this is, from my perspective, and my recommendation to the board is to really acknowledge that this board is very vocal about wanting community participation, about really seeking out that engagement. And this basically guarantees that over the next 12 months as applicable by law and statute and that sort of thing.
Great, thank you. I'll save my comments, but that's great, thank you. Second comment or question is, we are used to having 2 regular board meetings every single month. I just wanted to be clear on this. What we're doing actually is having 1 regular board meeting a month and 1 study session a month.
That's correct.
And the study session will start at 4, but our board meetings start at 5.
That's correct.
And then the next clarifying question again, because I know there's a lot here and I just want to clarify that we were moving our closed session meetings, which normally happen before, to after our regular items, our regular meeting.
That's correct.
Okay,
but I will state, often we'll reconvene to closed session, and that's sort of an unreported number, in that we'll often plan to speak about something in closed session for an hour, but it ends up taking 2 hours. So in a sense, we sort of truncate that conversation or don't give that conversation the correct amount of time. And when it takes place at the end of closed session, I know none of you are going to necessarily be big fans of this, but sometimes closed session will take 3 hours. But the general public isn't necessarily waiting to have their opportunity to be heard on the topic of importance to them, because all that work has taken place prior to the closed session.
And just clarifying question on that. And if there is, like, for how many closed sessions we have every meeting, there's been only a handful we've actually reported things out. But if we actually have to report something out, the audience doesn't need to wait here. They can essentially check back online because it's all video. And I'm assuming the video cuts for when we go into closed session, and then 2-3 hours later, I'll cut back. And so it's just like, a few seconds if someone were to actually watch it.
That's correct.
Last clarifying question, you mentioned that there were some items, I guess, on the study session list there that you may move around, and that this is just sort of work in progress or target dates. Is that right? Would you say, or?
It is,
Well-
and my plan is to include this as a discussion topic at our upcoming board community workshops, which will be scheduling for June and August, to be able to build community awareness about those special study sessions. I think it also opens up an opportunity for some of our practitioners and colleagues and coworkers to come and attend those special meetings, and to be able to really engage with us during the special meetings.
Okay, thank you. Those are the comments I have. Or questions.
I had a question. So there's oftentimes when we go to closed session, there's not an action item, but sometimes there are times like that. So are we able to, like, when there are nights where we'll be going to closed session, would it be possible to make some sort of announcement that there may be an action item so that people that do want to follow along would know to stay awake versus, is that possible?
When we agendize closed session, and as board president for the next 6 meetings, when you convene into closed session, you'll read the script that's provided. And I'd have to check on exactly the right way to express that, but an example would be, there is a difference between superintendent public employment appointment. Our colleagues over at San Mateo Union High School District a couple of weeks ago held a meeting, and on their agenda item was public employment superintendent appointment. So when they returned from closed session, they announced the board has voted to approve the appointment of a superintendent candidate, but it was not the type of item that named the superintendent. So the announcement was made that yes, we have appointed this person and we are in contract negotiations, which will come at a later meeting. So there are those sort of, I guess you could say, just uniqueness in how some of those items are worded. And I think on a meeting by meeting basis, we would get advice from legal counsel on exactly how to specify that. It's also the situation that I think when there's a really important thing in closed session, the public knows to wait. They know it's coming up and they know the board will likely have a response on that.
Thank you. Are there any other clarifying questions from the board?
I have a question. Can you please review one more time, like how we will be announcing this to the public in terms of the shift? Because I'm sure for some people it'll be a big change. More specifically, like the one board meeting a month and one study session.
Absolutely. Trustee Corzo, the process to create awareness in the community about these school board meeting changes is to agendize them in our upcoming board community workshops. When we send out the communication to parents, to be able to allow a conversation with parents at those meetings to create that word of mouth that you all know is so important, but also to take advantage of the district's strategies that we use to communicate with families, our district newsletter, our email, as well as our podcast and our YouTube live stream function, that we take these pieces of information and we pair them and layer them in multiple communication strategies that really does result in deeper understanding on the parent level.
Thank you.
Okay. Any others? No. Okay. Can we please go to public comment on this, Peter?
Absolutely. If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Rena, and then after Rena will be Marcella. Rena, go ahead. Hold on one moment. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. I was pretty surprised when I saw this on the agenda. I mean, this past year, 21 meetings. So the proposed meeting schedule is 12 meetings for next year. I recall during the many board meetings, many hours during the pandemic, I recall some board members really being unhappy at having to spend so much time doing board work, listening to parents, staying up late. I recall a board that wanted to tell your public, your constituents, that you were not going to be able to talk at public comment anymore. We were going to limit your comment because we don't have time to listen to you. And so I'm pretty surprised that, so this is the next step. I mean, how are you actually going to have a chance to hear from parents at all with that huge drop in the schedule? Furthermore, how are you going to figure out how to solve the problems in this district? I'm an Abbott parent. I just found out right here that the principal is leaving. How many principals does that make since Kathy Enan was here? I mean, there are so many problems, but it seems to me like you just don't want to deal with us, deal with the hard problems. But, like I said, I'm out. My kids are going to high school next year, and I am just so relieved because, oh, and by the way, study sessions at 4, how many parents can really go to that? How many? They're either at work or they're dealing with their kids or they're taking their kids places. Like, it's just not realistic. I forgot that. So anyways, farewell.
Thank you, Rena. Next, we have Marcella, and then after Marcella will be Randy. Marcella, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I imagine that there will never be the ability to schedule board meetings in a way that everyone can attend. I think there are always going to be people that aren't going to be able to make it depending on the timing. But prior to the pandemic, I struggled to stay in board meetings in person because of how late it went, parenting responsibilities. So personally, I appreciate that we are maintaining the Zoom opportunities. It allows me to both parent and stay connected with the board and the board decisions. I think that earlier meetings allow for more intentional timing, especially moving the closed session to later in the day. I think it's unfortunate that the amazing programs that President Proctor has brought up haven't had the opportunity to come and perform in front of you. I know Grace would have loved to come and sing at a board meeting. And my one point, or my one concern that I guess I'd like just kind of clarified, is that as long as the two types of meetings, regular board meetings as well as study sessions, are codified as this is what's going to happen, I really appreciate those intentional shifts where we know that the focus is going to be on a specific topic that we can discuss in depth. I do wonder if there can be a process by which, prior to those study sessions, it can be prefaced by listening sessions or surveys or other formats to gather feedback from the community, so that when the board is deliberating on these topics or these areas that are so important, that people that cannot make it to those study sessions can feel that their voices have been heard and are going to be represented as part of those meetings. So yeah, just those are my 2 points. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcella. Next, we have Randy. Randy, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. So I wanted to, I appreciate both of the prior comments and the positions that they reflect, and I have, I relate with both of them. But I wanted to ask really, like, who is the decision to have the study sessions at 4? Who is that supposed to serve? Is that designed to serve the board? Is that designed to serve district staff? Is that designed to serve more of the families? And I wonder if the board would be willing to ask that, or if this is something that they already know. Another observation is really, I saw Trustee Corzo shaking her head as Rena spoke, and I don't find that very respectful. But I do recall that there were board members that that really complained about how long those meetings would go. And after a certain time, there were a couple of board members that their voices would get really weak and they hardly could keep their eyes open. And are you as board members willing to stick it out and be tough for the what might be long meetings, reducing the business of the board to one time a month? And then the last concern that I have is really the format of the study sessions and how they do or do not engage people that are attending. Because how they're structured right now is you can show up, there may or may not be an agenda, and the only engagement can happen at the beginning of that session. And that can be really frustrating as somebody that is attending and does have input. And prior to that, you can read whatever materials might have might be provided, but you don't know the direction that that discussion is going to. You can see things kind of. There's relevant things that I think that staff, that parents, that community members, teachers, that they could offer if that format would be opened up in some way. But it's your decision to make. What kind of input do you want? Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, President Proctor, there are no other hands for.
Thank you so much. Let's open up to board comments.
I can start. I really appreciate the proposal and the shifts. Thank you, Superintendent Ochoa, for outlining the rationale behind all of the shifts. I know that we have struggled as a board to figure out the best way to dig into some of the issues that should be front and center and driving decisions. And so I think that prioritizing or some of the issues that affect our students and student achievement and all of the areas that you have outlined in the study session, I actually think, contrary to public comment around us not being able to dig into the issues, I actually think it allows us to dig into them much more thoughtfully and much more intentionally. And so I'm really appreciative of that. I think the structure of a study session it's just different than a regular board meeting. And these are the issues that we should be discussing at length. And so I appreciate that. I think I really appreciated Marcella's suggestion around gathering community input prior to those sessions. And so I'd be really interested to hear any reflections or takeaways or thoughts around ways in which we could do that. I know we kind of started doing like the Google form before board meetings as a way, and that really never took off. And maybe there's a way that we could be communicating that better so that folks utilize that or potentially some of the board and community workshops. But I'll also acknowledge that while you know the decrease of regular meetings from, I think Rena's numbers were 21 and 12, I haven't actually counted them. You know, there's the study sessions are also a meeting, and there have been additional opportunities for the board to engage in the public in ways that we haven't done before that have actually added to the number of meetings via the board and community workshops, which my understanding is that those will continue. So I actually think these are all ways, from my perspective, to gather more input on things that are the core to the work that we should be doing as a board. And so I appreciate the direction. Yeah, and I mean, I think in terms of I feel like there's one other thing I was going to say, and now I'm forgetting. So maybe it'll come back to me. But I appreciate this and understand that in terms of like some of the topics moving around. I think that that's fine. I think the important thing is that we have these nailed down. I guess my one other question, in addition to the communication piece, is I'm assuming in making this proposal and thinking through this with staff that there's a recognition that this is doable in terms of the agenda items that need to come during a regular meeting versus the study session, that there is a fundamental belief that the kind of regular business that we need to cover, we will be able to cover with this shift. And if that wasn't the case, that it wouldn't be proposed. But I guess I would just like also pose that as a question. We feel like this is doable. And then I guess a follow-up to that would be, if we get to a place where we feel like this isn't working, is there an ability to pivot?
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Watkins and President Proctor. On the first item, the department heads and assistant superintendents, our CBO, are all unified in support of the proposal, specifically what it does to organize the preparation that they make for school board meetings. And then on the second point, at any time, once a school board adopts a calendar for the year, you really want to go through another process of making any change to it. So if we were to accept this, implement it, and begin to feel sometime in, let's say, November, that it wasn't working the way that we wanted it to, I would just encourage the board to go through a process to make that change. So include it on a couple of board of community workshops, maybe hold a special session to talk about it in particular, because I think you want the public to really know when these regular meetings are taking place. And so you do have that right, but I would just want to go through a very thorough process to make sure, if we chose to change course, to go through a process without necessarily changing it from one week to the next, if that makes sense.
Thank you, President Proctor, for that look of your next. This is a really big change, to be honest, and I want to be clear and make sure the public understands, and that's part of my clarifying questions. We have done stuff so long in a certain way that it becomes like this is just the way we do business. This is a big change, but it's a really big positive change in my mind. I think my questions to you, Superintendent Ochoa, were related to, the first one was about sort of the Zoom and online and in-person meetings. I think the thing is that what it actually does is it is more open, it's more transparent. It provides people with more flexibility, rather than what some districts and what some cities are doing is they are actually going off and ending Zoom, where if you want to make a comment, you have to do what the old traditional way of doing business was, show up in person. Here's your 2 minutes, here's your 3 minutes, come to the podium, that's it. And I think what it's showing is that, look, what we've done and what we've learned over the time through the pandemic is that things are different now. Things are different and we are operating in a different way. I mean, if people haven't noticed, our board meetings are way more streamlined than they were before. They're way more efficient. We don't have a lot of stuff. There's usually 1 or 2 media items, but there's a lot of efficiency that has happened. And I attribute that to Superintendent Ochoa and your team. I think it's been great. I do think that there has been ways that we have reached out in different forms of communication, either through board community workshops, podcasts, YouTube Live. Those different ways of communicating with the public are all very positive. And I think this is just another step in the direction of how we are doing business in today's world. Ooh, sorry. Can you hear me? Sorry. Okay. So without belaboring the point, I think it's really positive. I think the idea of moving the closed session to the end of the meetings is really good. I think if people are really paying attention, like you mentioned, our first half an hour, 45 minutes, if it was at 5 o'clock, tend to be consent agendas. There's, a lot of times in the past, we had performances from students. There was a lot of things that came in. And so if people really wanted to be here or attend or regulars, they know like 5:30, 5:45 is when the real meat of the business will probably happen. The other thing about having the meetings earlier is that, what we found out through the pandemic is a lot of people don't know what happens in school district and school board meetings, right? They came online and they wanted like a back and forth, right? They wanted an understanding. They were upset at the fact that we had the items that they wanted to talk about weren't agendized till later in the meeting, but there was a structure to our agenda that this is what we had to do. I think this shakes things up. And this basically says like, look, we have these meetings, they're earlier. We have the opportunity to be in person or be on Zoom. You're still be able to provide the same public comment. Still have the time limits that we've set forward. I think it's 3 minutes per the president and per the president's, I guess, option in case there's multiple attendees or comments. But I actually think it's just a really positive thing. It's a step in how we are changing to the new way of doing business, and in some ways embracing the virtual concept and allowing people to attend virtually and still provide the public comment. I would agree that study sessions at 4 o'clock may seem to be a little early. So I would say that, as with any big change, I think the idea is to sort of learn from it, what works, what doesn't, and to be flexible in terms of the changes as we move on. I think also in terms of the setup, for study sessions, I would much rather obviously not be up here at the dais, but down in the middle of the room. And so if someone were to tune in, they notice that there's a difference between regular board meetings and study sessions. But I can't tell you, overall, I think it's a really great move. I know that there'll probably be hiccups along the way, but I'm all in favor of it. So those are my comments. Sorry for being long-winded there.
I'll be very brief. I always say that and then I end up going really long. So don't feel bad, Ken, you're not the only one. I'm excited about this shift. There are really a lot of issues that we want to dig into where we just need more time and where we lose people along the way when we're in board meetings and they're here for a different agenda item, and one agenda item takes up a lot of space. And the amount of engagement that we have even online now, like we're in front of, how many chairs is this, like 25 chairs, they're all empty. And that is not a bad thing because we have 38 folks online right now. And so that is more than, the amount of chairs that we have here. And we want to encourage that. We encourage that through the pandemic. It was required then. What was not required was allowing everyone time to speak their piece, and many other boards did that differently. And I still have people to this day saying, because I was actually the board president in 2020 when the pandemic hit, saying that we were crazy for even having meetings go until after midnight, after 1, after 2, because we felt it was so important to make sure everybody had space to speak their piece and to be heard, even when we did have to shorten. But it absolutely, like, we've moved on from that, and we still want to be transparent and we still want people to be able to engage. I'm excited. We're going to be essentially doing hybrid meetings. Yeah, if we look at our past 6 months of meetings, the numbers have gone down drastically, but they're still above what we were seeing pre-pandemic when we only did in person. For years, many of us here advocated for having our meetings be recorded, which they weren't before, for having them be posted, which they weren't before. It took time. It took a lot of technical difficulties, which we still face sometimes to this day. But those are steps that we as a board are dedicated to. And I think this will just be another phase of that. So I'm excited about it. And that is my comment. See, I told you I wasn't gonna be as brief as I hoped.
I'm just going to say I'm all in favor for this change. I like the idea of having the study sessions where we can really get into the nitty gritty of topics that we've identified as important to us as a board, and ultimately important for us to look at closer for the students that we serve. You know, I just a feedback that I would have, and just, I guess this is knowing the way my life is so chaotic with 3 children and going like 10 different directions all at the same time. I can see it being easy to forget if we have different start times. So maybe one start time for everything might help engage more people. So that would just be my one feedback. You know, and I do hope that we continue the board community workshops as well, so that we can actually meet people where they're at and have it not be quite so formal as like with the board meeting. So, you know, I like the idea of, you know, that, well, yes, we're decreasing the number of actual meetings. We're actually, it feels like we're increasing the amount of contact that we do have with people. So I see that as a positive.
I will just share my my initial reaction was like, what do you mean we're gonna only go to one meeting a month? But I will say that I have found the last several what did I just blank? Study sessions to be very, very valuable, and I've really enjoyed our time together and getting a chance to dig deep into some topics that we haven't been able to give as much time to as they deserve. I will also say that I think that the board study sessions, the public comment is really weird. Just asking for public comment before anything's been said, and then that's it, and there's no more dialogue from the public. It's strange to me, so I don't know if there's any flexibility around maybe circling back at the end or somewhere in the middle to just see if there's any other comments. I know it's a board study session, so if that's not something that we can do, then maybe following up right away with a board community workshop or something where people who want to have some dialogue about it can participate that way. So those are a couple of comments. The other one is I'm just, you know, I put these meetings on my calendar and I show up when it's time. But if I think back to when I was just a parent and working full time, I think that 5 o'clock would be hard for me to get to. I know that it's on Zoom, but I don't know. I know that we can't find a time that works for everyone, but 5:30 or something to me seems maybe more inclusive to people that have to get home and fight traffic, because I know people are starting to go back to work. In any case, it's fine with me. I do like the idea of maybe setting the meetings at the same time, so both the study session and the regular meetings at the same time, so that it's not different each week. And I also wanted to acknowledge that I think maybe not everybody realizes how much work goes into a board meeting, and so just in speaking with Superintendent Ochoa, that after tonight's meeting, basically there's, you know, next week is when everybody will start in the district will start to prepare for the following meeting. So it's a lot of like meeting, then preparing for the next meeting, and maybe shifting to one meeting a month, and then just a board study session would help alleviate some of the prep time for some of the staff and make the regular meetings a little bit, I guess, easier to prepare for, since it's once a month. I don't know. In any case, I'm fine with this. Just trying to read my notes really quick, make sure I didn't. Yeah, I'd like to continue with as much engagement as possible. I want to make sure that we're including as many people that would like to participate as possible. So I guess the question is if there's, if we may be shifting some of the topics or things around, should we still vote on this tonight or?
A recommendation is that we vote on this evening with the acknowledgement that heading into the summer, we'll bring this back as an adjustment to the actual order of the presentations, and then that becomes part of our communication to the public.
I just have one more thing because I said that maybe 5:30 is better. I'm okay with trying it out, and then if we start to hear a lot of people saying I'm not able to make the meetings or whatever, I just would like us to also maybe reconsider time.
I think it also bears discussion among the board tonight. In your motion. And I'd like to hear what the other board members think about making that adjustment before we adopt this. In other words, this evening and moving forward, this board being able to have a conversation now. I mean, 5 and 5:30 are very close in time, but I can see the point of a person that gets off of work at 5 o'clock and feeling like they have to race home to be able to log in. And I think it would bear a discussion now. And if a board member were so inclined, they could make the motion with the modification of the start time for the regular board meetings being 5:30. And if that were also relevant for the suggestion that Trustee Warren made of having one start time and not two separate start times. So why don't, I'd like to encourage the board to have that conversation now prior to making a motion.
I guess I will just add about my comment about 5:30 is because although the meat of the meeting may happen later, the public comment on non-agenda items is pretty quick. And so this would give people some time to get online if they have a comment about something that's not on the agenda. Although they can always reach out like in other ways and by email or whatever, but this would give them a chance. So that's my thought.
One comment and one question. Question first, assuming we approve this, we will have to amend our governing handbook. So we'll have to come back at some point, right, to do that. Okay, thank you. I'm just as a comment, I'm okay with 5:30 for everything. If that, and if everyone's agreement, yeah.
Can I just, I guess I would want to understand what the rationale was in terms of for like the different start times. I will say for me personally, I would have to like change my work schedule to be here at 4, but I'm not against doing it if there are, compelling enough reasons.
Absolutely. And in this case, I want to blame somebody over on the right-hand side of me here because, sometimes as a superintendent, you just make your decision of who you're going to pin it on and say, hey, I don't know how you put that in there. I think our thinking about it was very much in the sense of a 4 o'clock special board meeting does have that differentiation from a regular board meeting. That was kind of how we talked about it and what we thought about. But I think balancing the access, it's, hearing you all deliberate about it, I can see how the access being that later start time. And then, Trustee Corzo, we're here, for us, a 4 p.m. start time is, that's totally doable. But for a school board member that's a working professional, getting to a 4 p.m. it is a challenge to be able to rearrange. And I think all of us felt like, as we talked about this as a possibility, and felt like 5:30 for both meetings would also work.
Trustee Watkins and Trustee Warren, do either of you have any feel strongly one way or the other?
I feel like if 5:30 means more people will be able to attend, let's do it. If people can attend, plenty of people can attend at 5, that's fine too. So I guess not really much preference, but 5:30 works too.
My only comment would be that I don't know that we actually have the data to say what works best for most people. And so I'm inclined to move forward with the proposal as presented, and potentially if we wanted to do a survey, right? Because we're guessing right now. Like, I think all of the concerns that are being raised are valid. I can also see a world in which people would want to attend a study session on their drive home or towards the end of their day, and then be home and available to give their kids dinner and not be starting a meeting when it's dinner time, right? Like, I think that there's multiple different possibilities, and I just feel like we don't actually have enough information. We're kind of just guessing. So that would be my only comment.
Yeah, I'm not against that. I would say, I mean, I can flex my time, so it's not like, I don't know, not impossible. Maybe like 4:30 and 5:30, I don't know.
Who would have thought we would have so much conversation about the time? But it is a big change. I mean, you look back to when we joined the board, I mean, wasn't the meeting starting at 7:30? Then we moved to 6:30, then we moved it down. I think now, well, we start at 5, but I would love to just sort of move it along. I think that there is valuable points that both my other trustees have made regarding the time. I feel like we have had enough input here, but I do think that there is room for flexibility in the future. So with that, I will move to adopt this item with the 5:30 meeting times, and with the direction to staff to come back in June or August, because we don't meet in July, after public outreach through either board committee workshops or basically through public outreach, to come back with some other minor changes, whether it's to the times or the actual items on the study session, or any comments at all. Sorry, that's a long motion, probably the longest I've ever made.
I will second that. Oh, good.
No, you did it already.
Okay, I will second that. Sorry. Okay, so thank you, Trustee Chin, for the motion. I seconded it. Let's go to a roll call vote. Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So that is going to move forward. Let me find my agenda. Thank you, Superintendent Ochoa, for that. We are going to move on to item 6.2, first read of proposed changes to board policies, conduct, discipline, questioning, apprehension, and administrative regulation discipline.
Thank you, President Proctor. As the board is well aware, we reviewed these items at length at a special study session held a week ago here at the district office, which was broadcast online and has since been placed on the school district's YouTube page for any and all stakeholders that want to view the meeting, hear the deliberation, hear the conversation. What the board is viewing tonight is a list of policies that are recommended for adoption at a future school board meeting. This is the public's opportunity, as well as the board's opportunity, to give any comment or statement about the policies. I do want to remind the board that after our long deliberation, we all agreed that it was important for the public to see these at more than one school board meeting. So in our current system, we'll hear them tonight, which is May 12th, and then bring them back for a possible approval on May 26th. That's 2 board meetings, but it's really only about 15 days. And in our newly adopted board process, it would actually take place over a full month, which would allow a deeper, more lengthy time for the public to become involved, to read them, to come back and engage at a future meeting. In this one case, because we did actually make this the sole focus of a recent study session, I think it shows the school district's commitment to really dig into that public participation and that transparency. The policies that are before the board this evening on this item reflect some very high quality and innovative work related to changes that we hope to see in the years ahead regarding our acknowledgement of the district's disciplinary policies and disciplinary statistics over the course of multiple years, showing a very clear connection to the over suspension and to the separation of children from their educational experience that has a very negative effect on their academic outcomes after their suspensions take place. Included in tonight's item is also the school district's discipline matrix. This was referenced multiple times during the last special study session, and it is available for the board's discussion or review. Our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, Dennis, is with us tonight, able to comment on or answer any questions related to the discipline matrix. I also want to thank both David Chambliss, our Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, and Dennis, our Assistant Superintendent of Student Services, who have played a primary role along with Dr. Margaret Heredia, our Director of Student Services, in crafting the board policies and doing the very hard work of analyzing recommended strategies, recommended language in our policies. And they're actually both with us tonight, able to answer any questions about the board policies themselves this evening as well. As a summary topic for the public and for school board members, these policies are explicitly addressing and working towards increasing student voice in their educational experience, addressing racial equity in the district, acknowledging the importance of establishing positive school climate, not a punitive culture of discipline that removes kids from their education, and then challenging and addressing the school to prison pipeline in line with the district's approved Equity Task Force Board Resolution and Sanctuary Task Force Resolution as well. And with that, I'll open up for any questions from the board or the public and for deliberation.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? I had a question. I kind of focused on, since we had gone through these policies already in detail, I kind of focused on the discipline matrix. And I noticed that on some of the like ed code, there's a little asterisk, but and I was just curious, what does that mean? I didn't see like a note or something below.
President Proctor, is that on page 2?
It's on, no, let me see, hold on, maybe. Sorry, there's a few. So page 3 has one. There's a couple more on page 4 and 5.
Let me pull that up here.
Yeah, and if you, maybe you could just, if you don't know, then I'll just find out later.
I'll also project it for the public here as well.
Okay.
Give me just 1 second. There we go. All right. So
not this one, because that one, it says what that star means, but maybe page.
Starting here.
Go down see the first one where it says obscenity and it's like 48900 on an I, and then there's a star after it. Does that mean anything?
I'll ask Dennis for any context here. I don't know that it refers to any specific change or any deviation from the education code, but I'll let Dennis reply.
No, it's my belief is my understanding is it does not. But if you look at 48900 on the I with the asterisk, at the part above it, there are asterisks that do talk about certain items, like they're not more than one asterisk, but they're related. Does that make sense? It's at I don't think if Superintendent Ochoa, if you can scroll down so that you can see the complete top part of that page. If you or scroll up, I'm sorry, there you go.
That way.
There you go. But I will double check. I don't know if the committee meant for there to be 3 asterisks to refer back to those items, or just put one as but I'll follow up.
Okay, thanks so much. Any questions for anyone else? Okay, Peter, can we go to public comment, please?
Absolutely. If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay. We have Raina, and then after that will be Randy. Raina, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't know where this, okay, the discipline matrix, it's not going to help if teachers or staff do not observe the behavior. I have heard so many times this year from my kids about fights, but worse than that, I have heard about kids using the N-word at school, and there's an N-word pass, and there's another derogatory word that a lot of people use for LGBTQ kids, and there are anti-Semitic comments, and it's like, there's a lot. And I asked my kids, was there a teacher there? In some cases, there are teachers who hear derogatory words and they say something like, oh, let's not use that word. I was really shocked this year when they went back to school to hear some of the behaviors that were happening at school, and just really, really upset. And I'm on the board at Abbott, and you know, this was brought up on the board at the board meeting. I still had I don't know how any of this is getting fixed. It's just incredibly, incredibly disturbing. Thank you.
Thank you, Raina. Next, we have Randy. Randy, go ahead.
Hi, good evening again. I had a question about, again, about the discipline matrix. And there were a couple of things just on the first page of that for I guess it's the minor behaviors. And since this was not covered in the study session, the second column over the bottom thing that is a 2 by 10, I'm curious about what that is, just as a parent. And then in the first column, I'm curious about the second to the bottom item, which is tardy. And the thing that I'm concerned about, that I'm worried about with this, is I can understand, you know, at the middle school level where students might be, you know, tardy between classes or returning from lunch or that sort of thing. But, you know, in the case where, you know, for me, like in my case where you're going several miles driving my kid to get to school, there can be reasons that my kids might be late to school that have nothing to do with bad behavior on their part, but is bad behavior on their parents' part. And or whatever. And is there, is there a way to differentiate between that? Or is a kid going to have to pay the price for their parents' bad judgment? Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Next, we have Marcella. Marcella, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. A couple of things that I was motivated to speak by with the previous commenters is the recognition that the policies that the district sets are crucial, but the execution is where it's really going to make a huge difference. And who is responsible for implementing these changes and what the current culture and climate is in the schools are going to play a key role as we think about what gets counted as disruption or what gets counted as inappropriate language. So I appreciate the intentionality with which the board is looking at the policies, and I am very concerned for the current status, as mentioned by Rena earlier, of what is acceptable in schools right now and how that is being addressed. So as we think about policies, I really, really want to hear what is happening that can help ameliorate or mediate some of the pain and hurt that is currently happening to our students in the schools, some of the challenges that the teachers are having with managing classroom behaviors and engagement, and how to make sure that that outbursts or the challenge, the real challenges, both physical, mental, attentional, that our students are having in returning back to kind of school as usual, are being addressed. So I'm very concerned about how this can play out depending on which teacher is present on what day, and who's around to make sure that there is some responsibility to both support students who are engaged in trying to figure out how to get back to school, as well as students who are doing their best to stay sane and safe and healthy. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcella. Okay, President Proctor, there are no other hands for public comment.
President Proctor, if I can respond for a minute here, I think it goes to show the power of public participation when stakeholders who have children that go to school in our district and don't work for the district are able to really speak from an unvarnished place of what they hear from their kids, and what their kids and some of their kids' friends and classmates are going through. I think all of us came into this school year with the plan that by adding more counseling services to the district, especially at our middle schools, that we would be able to address the expected increase in behavioral incidents that we thought might take place this year. But the intensity of the student behavioral need is even more than we thought. And in retrospect, our team wishes that we had assigned more funding towards additional counseling support services. So part of the plan that I'll present to the board 2 months from now during budget adoption is to hire more counselors for our middle school students. Another very important topic to discuss that I think was hit on by our public comment, but not really driven home, was what we see as practitioners every day, which is the student use of social media as a vehicle and as a hammer to cause harm, to create division among students in our schools. We have a partner here in town, our local high school district, that has a more restrictive policy regarding student technology use on campus. and many folks in our community will refer to it as the yonder pouches. So we're pursuing that for next year. I plan to bring a more restrictive proposal to the board for the 22-23 school year that we believe is going to make a big difference in the daily harm that is caused between and among teenagers who use their social media apps to tease, harass, connect, comment on, and otherwise create division among them. And that's an important thing for our practitioners. Every principal will tell you that's a huge issue. All of our teachers will say it happens every day. It's a nonstop battle. I also think it's important for us to discuss publicly our plan to devote professional development time for our middle school educators, our middle school support staff, and our middle school administrators going into next year. Our very talented team here at the district office of counselors, Dennis's entire team will work in the next 2 months to arrange and facilitate training that we believe is going to equip all of our staff members at our middle school to be more prepared when incidents of bullying, verbal comments, potential conflicts are taking place in those hallways or in those classrooms. And going into next year, knowing that we have an opportunity ahead of us to bring students together in a very safe and open way where our practitioners can invite our teenagers into open spaces with each other to talk about what they're going through in their schools, to help them become part of the solution. Because we have some amazing student leaders out there, and we have some really brave kids out there that are willing to talk about what they're going through with their peers to try to reach an understanding and heal some of that harm that takes place in those middle school campuses. So I think the combination of those different components, the additional counseling, the professional development, the more restrictive technology use policy that will be proposed to the board, in addition to these very intentional, well-resourced opportunities for teenagers to come together next year on their campuses to talk about coming to school and allowing it to be a bully-free place, and say, I deserve to come to school here and not have this word said to me or that word said to me or this other word said in front of me. And that opportunity is out there for us.
Thank you for that. Let's do board comments.
I'd like to start. So I'm really happy that we have this. I think the road to this place has been long and at times very emotional, right? Because it's about safety, it's about the well-being of children, and no matter what side of the issue you stand on, we all want the same thing, and we just have different perspectives about how to get there. But this, I think, is taking out some of like the subjectivity of how certain decisions can be made, and creating like a very clear guide and very clear protocol that I think may be a little difficult to get adjusted to, but in the long run will be much better for children. And I will say that the yonder pouches, which is what the Union High School District uses, are very effective. I think I've said this before, but my younger sister, she's 19 years old, and she was a student recently, right? And now she was for I think almost a year, like a security guard and the first female security guard at San Mateo High School. And she loved the Yonder pouches. And now she's an instructional aide, but they really help students focus and take away that distraction. I will say that as someone who like, I myself, like, I like focus, but I also need like to be doing something. I'm very fidgety myself. So like sometimes that is what phones help people with. So I just want to like make sure we're giving our kids, even, you know, if we move forward to the Yonder pouch route, that we have them like, there's like a bunch of little things that people can use to fidget with, that we can offer to our kiddos instead of you know, having them like sneak their phone in class all the time. But I'm really excited about that. I know like my son's in 5th grade and he is so good about, he gets upset with me if I send him a text while he's at school, even though he doesn't look at it, he won't read it, doesn't make noise, right? But like, he's like, I'm in school, don't text me, right? And I'm like, I just wanted you to look at it after you got out of class. But that will change when he's in middle school, but hopefully, you know, we have those Yonder pouches and then, yeah, we'll get there. So I just, sorry, I'm like going on a tangent a little bit with the Yonder pouches. I just want to say like, I'm really excited for that. I think there's really good data in terms of it being linked to better academic outcomes and just better well-being in general. So I'm excited, and I will just say this one more time. I know folks have heard me say this probably several times, but I remember standing in this room with many of our principals and sharing the story that I heard from a family about graduation being taken away from a 5th grader because of a discipline issue, and how upset that parent was because she saw very clearly that it was tied to her child losing a lot of confidence and just really doing poorly in school afterwards. And kids all make mistakes. And I really hope that this discipline matrix and the changes that we will be making will lead to a better experience for all kids in schools. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing these again. And for those of you that are interested in kind of the more nitty-gritty conversation around the individual policies, the study session is, as Superintendent Ochoa mentioned, online. That's why we're not as much going into that at this meeting, just for folks that weren't able to attend that or didn't know. But, you know, as I shared there, you know, the desire to look at these policies has been something that's been on our radar. I know Randy actually raised the concern around one of the policies many years ago, and we embedded some of the desire to look at these policies into the board resolution on the school to prison pipeline and addressing discipline. And so, you know, just appreciative that we're at this place, that there's been an opportunity both for, you know, district staff has really looked at exemplar policies in these areas, and then done a lot of background work, and then brought them to some, you know, key stakeholder groups such as the Equity Task Force for input. And as a liaison to that group, have been a part of those conversations where there's just a lot of different individuals, community members, teachers and staff, students that have been able to give input and perspective on these policies. That's been invaluable, and staff has been able to take that back and make adjustments. And so, you know, this is shifting policy, and these are the right shifts that we need to be making. It's the direction that our district and our board are going. I will just echo comments around, you know, just wanting to know a little bit more about implementation. And Superintendent Ochoa, I know you spoke a little bit to that tonight, but I'd be interested, you know, at an upcoming meeting as we continue, because we will continue to look at more and more of these policies. I think one of the things that district staff has done as they've begun to embark on this process is look at all of the policies that relate to student discipline, which is much more exhaustive than kind of our initial ask. And so I appreciate that as well. And I think that there's an opportunity for us to kind of talk about what implementation kind of plans are, because, you know, Marcella's and other folks, I think Rena brought it up as well, are, you know, absolutely right. It's one thing to have these policies that kind of inform direction, and then what does that actually look like? And so I personally think that warrants some further sharing publicly as that gets more refined. But thankful to be having this conversation and being able to make some of these really important shifts. Just to highlight for folks that haven't had a chance, you know, one of the policies that's on here, which is, I think it's 5145.11, which previously allowed law enforcement, and it's actually standard. So any public school district likely in the state of California has this policy unless they've actively changed it, which allows law enforcement to come and question students on campus without letting their parents know first. And so this is something that was central to the resolution that we passed, I guess, almost over 2 years ago now, pre-COVID. And so it's, you know, really, really important one for us to address. There are others that are important too, but kind of just wanted to highlight this as one that I would encourage folks to look at.
Trustee Ward, it seems like you got frozen there when you were about to speak. So I'll go ahead and while you deal with your technical difficulties over there. Thank you, Superintendent Choa, for this presentation and the discipline matrix. I would agree with Trustee Watkins. I think we did a deeper dive in the study session or special meeting about the technical. Thank you for this opportunity, and I am grateful that this is the way we're looking at it, is the first read, and so that we can actually get out there to the public and make sure that they're aware of these, along with not just the public, but also our administrators and teachers and classified staff who may have to be looking at this as well. So the discipline matrix is sort of the newer item since we didn't have that, but I'm glad to see it in the matrix form. I do think we are moving in the right direction, and so I'm thankful for being able to look at these now. So thank you.
Okay, I'll make my comments, and hopefully by that time, so I talk fast, but maybe by the time I'm done, Trustee Warren will get back on. And maybe Peter, if you're listening, if you have a loaner computer or something, Trustee Warren's computer is not working. So I wanted to just thank everyone for their work on these policies and on the matrix. I think that, you know, focusing on students being able to repair harm and not so much get suspended and punished, to me sounds like a good approach. I really appreciated our conversation in the board study session. These policies just seem to me just more focused on moving forward rather than I don't know, getting kids in trouble. And so I agree with that. I think kids will sometimes make mistakes, and giving them the opportunity to show that they've learned and that they're that it was just a mistake is great. I will say, being a parent of two middle schoolers, it's hard. I mean, I know that these policies are for the district, but middle school students, they get to sixth grade and seventh grade, and they're different little animals. And so, you know, as much as I try to make sure my kids were ready and are going to be good citizens, sometimes they do make mistakes. And so I appreciate looking at these policies. I think in terms of the district, the matrix, I guess my question is how will we monitor that all schools and everybody's following this matrix? And I think that if you're a parent or a student who's not tuned into this, you may not know what to expect with some of these different mistakes, however you want to call it. So I'm just curious how we would monitor that this is being implemented across the district.
Thank you, President Proctor. One of the strategies that we use is our system for warehousing the information related to every disciplinary incident in the district is the ARIES program. It's a program that we use for grading as well as for attendance. And part of the process that's built into our strategic plan is to have reviews on a quarterly basis of the data aligned to the actual behavioral incidents that are included in this matrix to ensure that a class cut at school A has a similar consequence to a class cut at school B. And it's also built into our strategy to be able to provide ongoing professional development to our principals and assistant principals at each of our middle schools through a system of meetings that Dennis Hills and his team produce content for these the school leader meetings that we hold here at the district office. And then I think the last part is just being visible on campuses, responding on a regular basis to circumstances at our schools to make sure that boots on the ground support and monitoring is there as well.
I had just one other question, I guess. So I like the matrix, and I like that it talks about the different steps. My question was on tobacco use, why parents wouldn't be notified the first offense, basically, just because to me that seems like something that's a health issue, and I don't know if there's any rationale to that, but just curious.
That's a really good question. I wasn't on that committee, to be honest with the team, but I will find out what their thinking rationale was. But I agree, I would want to know. So I will follow up.
Thank you very much. Trustee Warren, are you there?
Okay, well, we're going to do it from my phone because my computer doesn't seem to be charging even though it's plugged in. So what can I say? Roll with it, right? Flexibility. But at the topic at hand, I really like the idea of how the matrix takes into account, restorative practices. I like the idea that we are really acknowledging the fact that many of our students have had a very different approach to socialization over the last 2 years. Business as usual hasn't really been business as usual throughout all different aspects of their childhood. So, I like that we're acknowledging that and taking that as the first step, and then escalating as need be. And of course, with the realization that some things do need to just be escalated as is because of the severity of the issue. So, I really like what I'm seeing. I just hope the work continues in the way, or I know that the work will continue the way. Let me make sure that I choose the correct words. But I appreciate the work that's gone into it. So thank you very much.
Any other comments on this item? On my agenda. Thank you on this, and I know this will come back, so we will look forward to that. Item 7.1, middle school history, social studies materials review and discussion.
Thank you, President Proctor, Board of Trustees and Superintendent. Happy to share for you sort of step one in the instructional materials adoption, where we're coming to you for information this evening with the staff proposal for adoption of a new middle school History Social Studies curriculum. If you'll give me a minute, I will pull up the slide deck. All right, very good. Okay. We are coming to you this evening with a proposal to adopt the TCI curriculum. It is a curriculum that we selected after engaging with county staff and publishers around 5 different curricula. And so I'm going to present information on how we went through the process to arrive at that recommendation with you. So just as you can see here on the following 2 slides, our work began in September, where we engaged with the county and then with one publisher, or whittled the available curriculum down to 2 choices, and then piloted starting in January, and again piloted in March with the TCI curriculum, and then came to a meeting just a couple weeks ago on April 27th, and now come to you tonight for that information step. Just to note that after tonight, we will put the materials available, and actually the slide deck has a lot of links embedded in it, so folks can really spend a lot of time online exploring the resources, but there will be materials also available in our instructional materials center for 2 weeks until we come back to you on the 26th for board approval. I just want to thank the many middle school history social studies teachers who participated. All teachers were invited to participate in the pilot. These were the ones who chose to do so and put in a lot of extra hours in working with the new materials. As I mentioned, the recommendation to you tonight is for the Teachers Curriculum Institute History Alive curriculum. Some of the elements of the program that struck our teachers and are important to know as we think about the adoption of this curriculum are outlined here. I'll let you take a minute to look through those. And then I think importantly, given the role that history social studies instruction plays in a district that is working toward greater and greater cultural responsiveness in our curriculum and instruction. Here's some highlights in terms of TCI, how it is culturally responsive in content. I'll give you a second just to look through those bullets there. I mean, the key with the curriculum is that it is so much based on first person original materials that students get an opportunity to hear voice and to make sense of diverse views, which is really one of the key pieces of culturally responsive curriculum. And TCI is just a leader in that respect as a social studies curriculum. And then in terms of how the curriculum itself supports a culturally responsive pedagogy, a key piece, of course, is addressing students' different sort of modalities of learning, particularly visual, auditory, reading, writing, and kinesthetic, and the lessons and the guidance materials that come with the curriculum really are deeply embedded in discussion and engagement and proactive application of what they're learning to current issues and needs that we are experiencing now in our society. And then importantly, it also integrates elements of social emotional learning, particularly as, you know, we're wrestling with difficult historical issues. It's very important to help our students come to understand the importance of listening, of taking turns, of engaging respectfully with each other, and in effect, building trust around historical learning. So you can see here, we really wanted to make as many resources available to you and to the community as possible. So there's several links there where you can you can delve into the details of the curriculum, and we hope people take advantage of that over the next couple of weeks. We wanted to share with you just some of the feedback. Our teachers, of course, surveyed and sought written feedback from students. Here are some examples from 7th and 8th grade students. So I'll give you a minute to read through those direct quotes. So there's some steps, of course, we're going to have to take for successful implementation once we get your approval to move forward. We have planned for this summer several opportunities for staff, of course, on a voluntary basis to work together, to be trained, and as well as have planning time. This will be part of the 5 days of PD as we're talking about in June and in August. Then embedding time in the school year where we will offer opportunities for teachers to come together and collaborate and plan lessons, units and lessons throughout the school year. So this two-step of professional learning from the publishers and then time to plan and collaborate is sort of the key to, we feel, our successful implementation. So I mentioned the next steps, that the materials will be available to the public. We will, of course, begin the process once you've approved it of the actual purchase, and then confirming the PD sessions both for the summer and for the fall. Of course, the bottom line is so critical. So we're bringing to you tonight a quote that actually is under budget. We originally budgeted $1 million for this, and we're coming to you with a quote for about a little over almost $750,000 for the materials, and then you can see the additional professional development costs. And I turn it back to you for any questions.
Thank you, David, for that information. Are there any clarifying questions from the board?
Thank you for the presentation. Clarifying question. Would this be the only curriculum that is used all year round then? Because I believe that we use multiple things. And is this the main curriculum for social studies then?
Yes, we would set the expectation that our 6th through 8th grade teachers would use this TCI curriculum as their core curriculum.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. I know you mentioned that it's rated highly in terms of culturally responsive content. I was wondering if that is if that's coming from the curriculum, or my first question, is that coming from the curriculum, or is that coming from our staff and teachers?
It's coming from two sources, both sort of standard evaluations of all the curriculum that are available go through evaluations, and so it's both that evaluation and then the perspective of the teachers that they felt that it was a strong culturally responsive curriculum.
Got it. And then in terms of the staff piece, was there a specific process that was used to, I guess, determine the culturally responsiveness, for example, a rubric, or what was the process, or was it more anecdotal?
The process was facilitated by staff from San Mateo County Office of Ed, and then and that included, most importantly, the state curriculum framework, which calls out the importance of sort of key elements of cultural responsiveness. So the core rubric or guiding document, I guess we would say, would be the state framework.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question about the professional development. I think you mentioned that maybe the summer was optional. Do you feel like there's sufficient time for teachers to get on board with this and be ready for the fall, or it's just something that they'll catch up on?
Yeah, I mean, there's the opportunity, as I mentioned, the volunteer time, and then of course, once staff is back in August, we'll schedule additional PD opportunities. Just to say that the approach with our 5 days of summer PD is to give teachers have an opportunity to choose into either 5 days in June or 5 days in August, and they're being paid at per diem. Strong incentive for all of our folks to show up and be compensated, of course, for their time and engage in the professional learning.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Peter, can we go to public comment on this item, please?
Absolutely. If there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to board comments.
I can start. Thanks for the presentation. We, this is so important, our social studies curriculum, in light of all the work that's happening in our district. And I think about all the intersections with so many of the board resolutions that we've passed, in addition to just the general direction that our board is going and our district is going. We had the opportunity, and I'm blanking on where we were, but we saw this being piloted. I've had an opportunity to talk to a couple different teachers. I know that there's a lot of excitement around this curriculum. And I really want to, to support a curriculum that our team is really excited about. I do just want to note that I do have some concerns just around process and speed with this. Just first to note speed, like this is really quick, much quicker than any other curriculum adoption. And I know that people are eager to move on to a more updated, culturally relevant curriculum. And I appreciate that and can understand, being a teacher wanting to not have to go another year with a, outdated curriculum. And so I totally can empathize with that. And I think that I still have some questions around kind of just process and, I think back to one of the elements of the equity resolution, which was around kind of having a rubric by which we would evaluate any new curriculum. And we haven't done that. And that hasn't been something that's been implemented with other curriculum adoptions. And so I don't mean to single this one out, but I feel that it's kind of why I asked the question around kind of who's deciding that it's culturally relevant. I know, there's probably some limitations in terms of options. I have like some hesitation with how true that really is from any big publisher. And I have looked at this one and, there isn't anything that stands out to me in terms of like super glaring. And, I could see the team still getting to this exact same place and bringing this exact same curriculum back. But I think for me, it would be helpful to know that we'd gone through a really strategic process where we really thought about, like, I think about implications for the ethnic studies resolution. How much does this or does this not align with the elements of that resolution? How does this align or not align with the equity resolution? And just kind of, I know that, so those are kind of some of the pieces that I'm wondering if those were things that were a huge part of the conversation. I would love to know a little bit more about kind of what that looked like and what that process looked like. If they weren't, I'd be really interested in that work happening as a part of the analysis for all of the curriculum that were being considered, and potentially slowing it down a little bit. Yeah, those are kind of some of my initial thoughts.
So I'll just follow up with Trustee Watkins. I'm absolutely in favor of new curriculum that is culturally responsive. And I hear the excitement in terms of our teachers wanting new curriculum. I am also sort of concerned about sort of the timelines. My initial thought was, wow, we just started looking at this in September, and here we are, we're going for adoption. The old pre-pandemic sort of timeline was sort of 3 years for curriculum. I remember that, and each of those years is what, selection, piloting, and then implementation. And then during the pandemic, we adopted stuff like right away because we had to, and some of it worked, some of it didn't. We've had different timelines for sort of curriculum adoption. And so I would love to sort of get a handle on, you know, what really is our process and our timelines to fully vet the curriculum. I'm, again, okay with this if this is the one that is chosen. I just, in more globally, would like to look at how we're actually going forward with that. I remember when I first joined the board, I think our science curriculum was something like 7 years old or something, and we were obviously deficit spending. We didn't have the money, and we didn't have anything to just get new curriculum. I think it was science, or maybe it was something else. But that was a big point to try and make sure we were up to date. I'm okay with moving at a faster pace to stay up to date. I just have some concerns about timing. And so, and again, if it's a faster pace and we're able to do things in a faster place, then I'm perfectly okay with it. I just, it feels inconsistent in some ways. Because I remember the last curriculum that we did, we actually did go through a very thorough process, or it took years, but that was also through a little bit of the pandemic, even though we're still in the pandemic. So, so those are my comments. Thank you.
So I'll just add that I'm also glad that there's excitement around this curriculum, and I know that there are links in the presentation, and I encourage members of the community to go through and look at those to get an idea. I also agree it feels pretty fast, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But I do want to just elevate that. I mean, it sounds like it's much more culturally responsive, and that is definitely, you know, like a positive. And I guess I would want to have us as a board maybe just gain a better understanding of like what other boards in the region are adopting with more of like an ethnic studies lens. And I know that, yeah, I think I just would want to know that, because especially because that is I mean, it sounds like that's the direction that this curriculum is in, but just to be a little bit more like explicit about that, because it would just be helpful to know, and just to make sure that, I mean, it's like a really important decision, right? So to make sure that we are, and if I'm like missing something, please like correct me, or feel free to give me a little bit more info. But yeah, those are my thoughts, but I also would love to hear from others.
You want to go? Okay, I'll be brief. I wanted to thank you for bringing this. I think it was Bowditch that we went to, by the way, when we met the teacher that was piloting this program, and she was very excited about this, and her class seemed really engaged. And I think when we went to Bayside, we might have seen some more of these books in some of the classrooms. So I am happy to hear that that both teachers and students are excited about this program or this curriculum. I think for me also, it seems kind of quick, and maybe one thing we could discuss at some point is just the process for curriculum adoption and how long it should typically take, and what we can expect going forward. And I know we've adopted a lot of curriculum recently, it feels like, so maybe there's not going to be something for a while, but just kind of understanding the whole process would be helpful. And then when Trustee Corzo was talking, I started to think, you know, all of our students will go into like San Mateo Union High School District. It might be helpful to know what other school districts that feed into that, to the high school district, are also using. Not saying that we have to be the same as everyone, and we can certainly be leaders, but just to get an understanding of what else people are using, and especially as our middle schoolers move on to high school, and they'll be in with other districts as well. So I am looking forward to hearing more about this, and seeing, I have kids in middle school, like I said, seeing how they enjoy it when it happens. But thank you for the information.
I don't really have anything meaningful to add to this. So, you know, I want to thank their trustees for their input and their statements.
Okay, so I don't, Superintendent Ochoa, I don't think this is an item that we need to vote on, but do you want to just maybe touch again on next steps? And
Absolutely. And I want to give David an opportunity to jump back in here for a minute and talk a little bit more about process. I think generally in the state of California, you'll have school districts that are sort of, they have an appetite for being the first to adopt curriculum. So you'll see school districts that have a short timeline for doing a materials trial run, pilot, they refer to it as, and then others that deliberate longer. I'll leave it to David to talk. This is your third year in the district, David, and just talk a little bit about what might be referred to as our typical process, and what this process has been like, and why, you know, tonight's item was brought in particular to history and social science.
Sure, thank you, Superintendent. And, you know, just, you know, want to affirm, you know, we've lived through some strange times in the last few years, right? And we made some very quick decisions around core curriculum, driven by the need to have resources that supported distance learning, and so did not go through the normal pilot and adoption process. I would argue with you this, you know, in my time here in the district, which is, you know, coming close, actually 4 years now, the two major curricula that we've proposed to you actually are the two that we brought to you in the last few meetings, is the science and history social studies, acknowledging we've adopted some other curriculum, but under circumstances where it was quite shorter. In my experience, I led this process in you know, other districts. The timeline that I've always lived, you know, both as a principal and as a teacher and whatnot, has been a year. Typically, you know, if you can, you start some of the search the prior year, and then you know, like literally in the spring, and then you pilot through the year and you adopt at the end of the year around time to order materials. So actually a year is I think a standard, and actually I would argue in the case of our science curriculum, we attempted to follow that same timeline. It was a combination of a group of science teachers that were incredibly passionate about having a curriculum that truly lived the NGSS standards. And so we came to vote in a timeline that would have brought this to you in a year, and they couldn't come to consensus. So we said, okay, we're going to take another opportunity, look at other materials. And then, suddenly, of course, we were in the pandemic years and things were highly disrupted. So we were actually following the same timeline that we've used this year. Now, the difference this year is the history, social studies teachers came together. They reviewed and looked at and piloted the two curriculum, and actually one vote, completely unanimous around TCI. And maybe I should have emphasized that in my opening comments. So we didn't have the circumstance that we had with our science team, where there was split vote and indecision. So again, that process of basically within a year doing the selection, the pilot, and the recommendation for adoption is the timeline that I'm familiar with, and that certainly we've been working with the county that they were guiding as well, and do guide with other districts. So.
And I think this is an opportunity, David and members of the board, for us to take advantage of this March 26th meeting, as well as this June 9th meeting, and to be able to maybe stretch out this process of us getting some more context that the school board and members of our school community can hear. I think it might actually be quite nice to hear from teachers who served on this committee, who might be able to share some of their viewpoints as our practitioners and educators. I do recall, Allison, I think you and I were standing next to each other when the teacher sort of ran towards us and said, "This is the best textbook I've had in the last 10 years. And I think we all sort of said, "Oh, okay." She caught us off guard, but I think this gives us an opportunity to go into process and also to push ourselves to think about how this potential curriculum addresses the very valid and critical issues that we're working on, to be able to have a kind of educational program that really reflects an affirming experience for all of our students whose histories are recognized in the texts that we select for them. And I think maybe pulling that out, maybe an additional meeting or two, might just really help us get there. And that's what I would recommend to the board that we do.
And with your guidance, I'd be happy to come back with perhaps some more detailed examples of the content. We could spend a little more time on that. I mean, this curriculum, for example, has a strand around Pacific Island and engagement with our AAPI families and students that is actually not typical of many other curriculum out there. So there's some elements there that we could share with you that hopefully would address the questions you have.
I would love that. Go ahead.
Thank you, Superintendent Ochoa and David. I just want to thank you for your answers and the insight into the process. I do recall on various curriculum that we've adopted that there's been split votes before, and to understand that this was a one vote, that everybody was on board, really helps in terms of just the timeline of the process. And so I really appreciate your answers and the insight. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for providing that additional context. And I think it would be great to bring this back another time and hear a little bit more and allow some time for some engagement with parents that may want to come check it out. Anything else before we move on? Thank you, David. Okay. It looks like there's nothing under item 8, correct? Okay. Item 9.1, title resolution number 2721-22, classified employee appreciation week. And
good evening, President Proctor and members of the board, Superintendent Ochoa and community. This evening for action, We have for you the resolution for Classified Employee Appreciation Week. May 15th through 21st has been declared Classified School Employee Appreciation Week. And so it is recommended that the Board of Trustees adopt a resolution honoring the district's classified employees and declare May 15th through 21st as the Classified School Employee Appreciation Week.
Thank you, Sue. Why don't we read this together and then we'll go through the normal steps. So if everybody could pull it up, we'll just go in our normal order. Warren, Watkins, and I mean, just down the line basically, but we'll pretend like Shara's sitting next to me. So go ahead, Trustee Warren.
Okay, San Mateo Foster City School District Resolution number 272122. Classified School Employee Appreciation Week, May 15th through 21st, 2022. Whereas the week of May 15th to 21st, 2022 has been designated as Classified School Employee Appreciation Week, and
Whereas California School Employees Association is celebrating the theme, "We Are Classified, We Bring It Every Day," this year, and
whereas San Mateo Foster City Schools returned in person and our classified employees bring their expertise, enthusiasm, and heart every day for students, staff, and families, and
Whereas classified staff support students and families by welcoming them with a warm smile, making phone calls to encourage participation in Footsteps to Brilliance, providing translation during meetings, and managing independent study work, and
Whereas San Mateo Foster City School District classified staff supports students' social, emotional, academic, and physical well-being by providing high-quality childcare in the Annex program, conducting LPAC testing for students, assisting students during sensory breaks, and serving nutritious meals, and
I'm so sorry. Whereas classified staff create a safe environment with COVID testing champions who ensure that staff and students are tested weekly, custodial and maintenance teams who keep sites clean and attractive, and nursing staff who help students stay healthy so that they can attend school, and
whereas San Mateo Foster City School District classified staff go above and beyond the call of duty by making home visits, delivering books and instructional materials to students in the evenings, and collecting donations for families in need on their own personal time, and
whereas classified staff have stretched themselves professionally to learn new technology skills, become familiar with Zern and Twig curriculum, and participate in monthly training to learn behavior intervention strategies, and
whereas San Mateo Foster City School District classified staff have been role models for students by saying yes when anyone asks for help, showing empathy and kindness to others, and through their can-do attitude when faced with difficulty, and
whereas the San Mateo Foster City School District recognizes that these are only a few examples of the classified staff's dedication and commitment to students, and
whereas the San Mateo Foster City School District community recognizes the extraordinary undertaking and hard work of its classified staff in educating its children.
now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees extend its sincere appreciation and gratitude to the San Mateo Foster City School District's classified staff and proclaim the week of May 15th through 21st, 2022 as Classified School Employee Appreciation Week, and
be it further resolved that the San Mateo Foster City School District Board of Trustees strongly encourages all members of our community to join them in personally expressing appreciation to our classified staff for their dedication and commitment to children. Okay, so now, are there any clarifying questions on this item? Okay, Peter, can we go to public comment, please?
If there are any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, any board members like to make a comment?
So, just thank you very much to all our classified employees. You know, you deserve more than just a week, you know, and definitely deserve recognition every day. So thank you for everything that you do for all of our children.
I'll jump in next. I think I've said it before, you guys are our unsung heroes. Without you, we cannot operate. And so I just want to really say thank you. And I really appreciate all your hard work throughout the year. I know last year and continuing this year, we're still dealing with COVID to a great degree. And I know that everyone has had to step up and take on different roles and do different duties that they normally wouldn't have. But I really want to say thank you. And I really appreciate everything that you guys have done. So thank you.
I also want to say thank you from just, you know, the warm greetings in the morning and after school to being patient with our kiddos who don't clean up after themselves all the time like they should. To, you know, our annex staff, all of our classified staff, we're really grateful. And, you know, I think about how the past 2 years have been all about just pushing through and surviving, and the extra work that it's created in terms of cleaning and passing out COVID tests and passing out supplies and just all of these new things. And now we're kind of getting to a place where, I mean, it's definitely not over, right? We know that, but where it's slowing down and like, you know, you finally can, like, I don't want to say rest, but like just be in the, like, be out of survival mode, and that can be difficult and amazing and all of those things. So I just, yeah, my sincere gratitude to you all. Thank you so much.
Just to echo what my fellow trustees shared, you know, when I think about the COVID pandemic and when we originally went back, or when some of our students went back to school, our classified staff were the first folks that were there to support our kids who needed it, and continue to be really that lifeline and support for so many of our kids and their families. And so just so grateful for the selflessness and with which you engage with our community. And we're so grateful. And hopefully this week will be or next week will be a week where you feel an extra dose of love and appreciation from the San Mateo-Foster City community.
I also want to thank our classified staff for everything that they do. I hope you all know that you play such an important role in our district and in our children's lives. And I hope you know how much you are appreciated. I will quote Alicia Aragon from earlier this meeting: "You truly are the glue that holds everything together." So thank you. And I hope you have a really great week next week. And just really want to say thank you. Any other last comments? Okay. We will move on to item 9.2, AB 1200, Public Disclosure of Collective Bargaining Unit Agreement with San Mateo Elementary Teachers Association.
Thank you. Assembly Bill 1200 requires that the school district publicly disclose any costs related to negotiated collective bargaining agreements. So on April 11th, the district and SMETA reached a tentative agreement on successor negotiations, and it was ratified. And so attached for information are the disclosure forms, which summarizes the financial implications of the major provisions of the agreement. And so I respectfully request that the board receive the AB 1200 public disclosure forms for information as presented. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Sue. Are there any clarifying questions? Okay, Peter, can we go to public comment, please?
Yes, any members of the public that might like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Thank you. Are there any board comments on this item? Okay, I'm not seeing any. We didn't need to vote on that, right? Okay, we're moving on to 9.3. Hold on, I need to minimize this. Approval of SMFCSD and SMETA tentative successor agreement for the 2022 to 2025 and salary schedules.
Presented for your approval this evening is the district and SMETA tentative successor agreement, as well as the associated salary schedules. And so the major provisions of the agreement are listed. It does include a 3% increase next year for the 22-23 school year, as well as a 3% increase for the 23-24 school year. So I respectfully request that the board approve the tentative agreement and the salary schedules as presented.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions on this item? Okay, seeing none. Peter, can we please go to public comment?
Any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. We have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to make any comments from the board?
I'll make a comment. I just want to thank the district staff, Sue and your team, and SMETA and their bargaining team. I think that we've come a long way, and I think the fact that we are having an agreement before the start of the next school year is really great, and I just really appreciate everyone's hard work on this, and I'm happy that we as a district are in a really good place to make this happen, especially when you hear what's happening at other districts around the Bay Area and around the state. It's not very easy to sort of run a school district, especially when the budget and finances are not good, but I feel like we're in a very good place. A lot of that is thanks to the voters, and so thank you to all the community and voters who supported Measure V. But I really do want to thank everybody for everything on this. So, and I'm really happy about this agreement. And if no one else wants to make a comment, I will make a motion to approve this.
I will second. Thank you to the entire team for making this happen.
I also wanted to just also thank the team. Thank you to Lisa and Julie and the SMETA team and Sue and everyone at the district that made this happen. So thank you very much. And we can go to a vote. Trustee Chin was the motion and Trustee Watkins was second. So we'll go to vote. Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the support of the board and Superintendent Ochoa, and really appreciate the district team and also Julie MacArthur and Lisa Fahey and her team. Thank you.
Absolutely. Moving on to item 9.4, public hearing on California School Employee Association CSEA Chapter 411 initial proposal for 2023-2024 reopener negotiations with San Mateo-Foster City School District.
Thank you. We respectfully request that the board conduct a public hearing on the initial proposal from CSEA. We had brought you an earlier proposal for the 22-23, but this evening we're bringing you one for the 23-24 school year. We did negotiate a 2-year salary agreement with SMETA. We are hoping to do the same with CSEA, and which is why we're bringing you a second reopener initial proposal. So per Government Code 3547, prior to negotiating and meeting, we do need to provide the public with an opportunity to express itself in regard to initial proposals. So we respectfully request that the board conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding CSA's initial proposal for 23-24 reopener negotiations.
Okay, thank you very much. I will open the public hearing at 9:33 p.m. Peter, can we check with the audience for this?
If there anybody would like to make comment during this public hearing, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. We have no hands for the public hearing.
Okay, closing the public hearing at 9:33 p.m. I think now we could move on, right, to the next item. Okay. 9.5, California School Employee Association CSEA Chapter 411 initial proposal for 2023-2024 reopener negotiations with San Mateo-Foster City School District.
Presented to the board this evening is the CSA's initial proposal for the 23-24 reopener negotiations. There are only 2 articles that will be open. One is for salary, one is for benefits. And these initial contract proposals must be presented in public and recorded as part of the public records. So I respectfully request that the Board of Trustees receive for information CSA's initial proposal for 23-24 reopener negotiations.
Thank you, Sue. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? Okay, Peter, can we go to public comment on this item?
Any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. We have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board comments on this item? None, okay. We will move on. Was that 9.5 or 9.6? They look the same.
Yes, for 9.
Yeah, 9. Okay. 9.6, public hearing on San Mateo-Foster City School District initial proposal for 2023-2024 reopener negotiation with California School Employee Association CSEA Chapter 411.
So similarly, I respectfully ask the board to conduct a public hearing for the district's initial proposal for reopener negotiations with CSEA. We need to have this take place in order to provide the public an opportunity to make comment on the district's initial proposal.
Thank you, Sue. I will open the public hearing at 9:35 p.m. Peter, can we check if anybody would like to make a comment on this?
Any members of the public that would like to make comment on the public hearing, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom. Okay, President Proctor, we have no hands.
Okay, thank you. Closing the public hearing at 9:36 p.m. And we will move on to item 9.7, San Mateo Foster City School District initial proposal for 2023-2024 reopener negotiations with the California School Employees Association CSEA Chapter 411.
So presented to the board for action is the district's initial proposal for the reopener negotiations with CSEA. We are also opening 2 articles, Articles 21 and 23 for compensation and benefits. So I respectfully request that the board approve the district's initial proposal for the reopening negotiations.
Thank you, Sue. Are there any clarifying questions from the board? Okay, Peter, can you check for public comment?
If there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Proctor, no hands for public comment.
Okay. Sorry, can't see my agenda. Okay, moving on to item, oh, was there any board comments? I don't think so. Right? Okay. We will move on to item 9.8, approval of the participation in the reduced workload program.
Thank you. I respectfully request that the board approve 2 teachers to participate in the reduced workload program, which is also known as Billy Brown. It's allowed in the education code, and both the teachers do qualify. This allows the teachers prior to retirement to work part-time and receive full service credit as they transition into retirement. I respectfully request that the board approve participation of these 2 teachers in the reduced workload program.
Thank you. Are there any clarifying questions on this item? Okay, Peter, can we check for public comments on this item?
If there's any members of the public that would like to make comment on this item, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. President Proctor, we have no hands for public comment.
Okay, thank you. Are there any board comments or a motion from anyone?
No comments, but I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second. Trustee Chin had the motion and I had second. We will do a roll call vote. Trustee Warren.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Chin.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So that's 5 yeses. Moving on to item 10, board member statements and requests for future agenda items.
In following up on our study session and also the board policies, just wanted to reiterate my hope that we could bring back for conversation the discussion around a new MOU or policy for engaging with our local police departments. Because while we're talking about, discipline and what police can or cannot do in terms of questioning students, part of the resolution was really to think about what our relationship would be with our departments. And so just was hoping that we can bring that for discussion in the somewhat near future, hopefully in advance of the next academic.
I just wanted to thank Superintendent Ochoa and the district office staff and the members of the Burrell Middle School. For those who don't know and who heard at the beginning of the public comment, there was a shelter in place this morning. I will say that as a Burrell Middle School parent, it is a little unnerving when you get that and you get those emails. I will definitely say that this is somewhat like the new world we live in some ways, and that shelter in places do happen. I'm glad that it was a successful and non-eventful issue. And I'm also glad that we were able to communicate in a way faster than, or that we learned from Abbott earlier this year, and we were able to communicate in a much faster process, a faster way. I think that the communication that went out at, what time was it, 9:36 about the shelter in place, and then subsequently the next one just 40 minutes later, lifting the shelter in place, I think they were very well done. And I know that, when this happens, it's sort of all hands on deck, and district staff all run over to the schools and try to help out. I know the police were there as well. I just want to say thank you to everyone who helped out in this situation. It is unfortunate again that these things happen, but they do happen. And I'm very thankful that it was not eventful and that our communication to the parents and the community were really great. Of course, we had some people who were still concerned and did email us. But to be honest, I would rather have the emails come in and question sort of the process about it, rather than having them come in and say, we had no idea that this was happening. So I'm really thankful. So thank you.
Thank you. Along those same lines, I also wanted to just thank again Mr. Singh for keeping the students at Bowditch safe when there was that fire. I don't know when that was now. Time's going by quickly, but thanks for his quick action, and I'm glad that we're able to recognize him. And once again, just remind everyone about Mr. Lee at Audubon. My thoughts and prayers are with him and his family, and there was a request for anybody who's able to help make origami cranes. And I think that was by very soon. So if you can do that, let us know, let somebody know. Thank you. Okay, any other comments before we go? Okay. Okay, item 11, future meeting dates. They're listed there. Looks like we have a couple of school visitations, which is exciting. And with that, we're at item 12, adjournment. And oh, actually, I should mention we're going to go back to closed session. So we're not really going to adjourn. We will head back over there. We don't need to motion for that, right? Okay, then have a good evening, everyone.